Hey folks, how are we going? I was really fortunate to have been sent a copy of a game to review, and this has been a review that I've been really eager to share with you guys. It feels a little bit different because this game isn't a role-playing game per se, but a tactical role-playing game. As always with any game that has been sent to me, I do like to give my unbiased thoughts, though I am very appreciative to have been sent a copy of this game by the creator. This is Zafir, a tactical role-playing game by Randy Knapp. Fundamentally speaking, Zafir is a sci-fi fantasy role-playing game. On a planet one day, a crystal called Zafir was mined for the first time. Eventually, it was discovered that this crystal had been absorbing the planet's magical energy and had been storing it up within the crystal. The discovery of this stone and its properties led to a boom in both magic and industry. There's plenty more history that happened in between the discovery of the crystal and present-day Zafir. Suffice to say, the discovery of this crystal and its magical properties changed a lot of lives on this planet. In between then and now, there have been several conflicts, groups discovered, and cultures merged. In the present day, there are several nations, religious, and ethnic groups that make up the world of Zafir. I could do a whole video about the lore alone. There's that much of it. There are about 6 official nations that are found in Zafir. There's a huge variety in the cultures and the governments, ranging from a constitutional monarchy to a matriarchal council and a corporate hegemony. Throughout these nations, there are 6 intelligent species. The Isan, who are like the humans of our world, the Hin, who look like elves, the Din, who are a bipedal fox race, the Athniki, who look a little bit like the Hin but have purple skin and pronounced teeth. Then there's the Ruthari, who are a bipedal feline race. And lastly, there is the Jan, who are a reptilian race. Most of the nations have a mix of these 6 groups. There are also a few examples of bi-species offspring in this world, but generally couplings between these species are incompatible for reproduction. So children of these relationships are very rare to find. Now, within this book, there are several passages about the various places found throughout Zafir. There's details of the languages, the cultures, as well as histories, conflicts. There's also several religions, calendars, and cultural holidays. You could spend a long time getting lost in the lore of Zafir alone. I in particular have a soft spot for the story of Old Jack, a human who has recently ascended to godhood and is causing quite a lot of contention among various religious groups. Zafir is slightly different to some of the other games I've encountered on this channel. It explicitly calls itself a tactical role-playing game, meaning there's a bit more crunch to this game. For example, when a player character drops to 0 hit points, they're not automatically unconscious or dying. Instead, players roll on a critically wounded table. This could lead to the character gaining permanent disabilities that require aids and therapies to mitigate, or they could start bleeding out on the battlefield. There are also several options for player characters' weapons, with 4 pages of a table of weapon modifications that are possible in-game. This game is also a dice pooling game, meaning there are a lot of factors that could contribute to how many dice you roll. For example, there is a possibility of gaining or losing die based on whether or not an enemy is in partial cover. This game also calls explicitly for a 3-dimensional battlefield. Some of you might be familiar with using a battle map for your games. This is kind of similar, except it requires some work in the 3rd dimension. Buildings and slopes require you to draw out ladders and build them up 3-dimensionally onto the battlefield. Rather than this having a high entry cost though, the book shows examples where people have been using meeple tokens, fantasy miniatures, and bits of balsa wood and printed grid paper just to illustrate the scene. There are also branching class options for the player characters. Generally, these fall into 3 categories: magic users, necromancers/spiritualists, and weapon users. I'm particularly a fan of the spiritualist class options, as there is an option for your character to have a magic tech theremin, which is so incredibly cool. Downtime in this game also has mechanics. Player characters will have roles in the party that they need to fulfill, like leadership, maintenance, entertainment. These skills are actively worked on by the characters by seeking out experts and actively working on the craft. There are also ships to maintain, an economic system, and various other downtime activities like religious worship your characters can get involved in. I feel as though I've only given a brief overview of everything that is possible in Zafir. There are a lot of interesting and complex mechanics to be found in Zafir, and perhaps while this might be intimidating, I find them all really interesting and well thought out. I also think the battles in this game would be fantastic to film and stream, and be a bit more interesting than some other tabletop role-playing games. It's really hard to summarize everything in this book. It's a thick and heavy book with a lot of ground to cover. I have to mention briefly though, a choice they made to make certain backers of the original Kickstarter non-player characters in the book. They got a large art piece done of this particular lady, and I just think she is so cool and so gorgeous. I think placing your Kickstarters as fictional characters into your world is a lovely gesture and shows a great deal of appreciation. The art style throughout this book does tend to vary. There's a mixture between photography, 3D rendering, and various two-dimensional art. I do wish in some places it was a bit more unified. There are some pages here that take my breath away with how stunning they are. I also got a series of tokens to play with this book, which I think make it really approachable to start up that battlefield. While this is a heftier book, there is absolutely everything you need for a group to play. And I think with the addition of perhaps a roll of 1-inch grid paper, you'd be all set to start up a campaign. And 1-inch grid paper isn't that expensive in the grand scheme of things. This is a tabletop role-playing game for a more mechanically minded group. For the groups who really enjoy getting into the nitty-gritty of the mechanics and coming up with great battle plans and coordinating together to come up with the best schemes to take down the enemy. If you are perhaps a part of a more roleplay focused group, that isn't really the focus of this game. It's absolutely there, and there is so much lore to create interesting and evocative roleplay scenarios. There just aren't that many points to be won. Perhaps it's not a game I would pull out to start up on a whim, but I am really keen to run this game more, and several of my friends and I have been admiring this book. So those were my thoughts today on Zafir. It's a game that I've really enjoyed reading, and I am very appreciative to have been sent a copy. But tell me, what do you think? What do you think of the title of a tactical role-playing game? Would you like to play a game that's more strategically focused, or are you part of the crowd who prefers more free-form roleplay? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, consider liking and sharing with a friend. It just encourages me to keep going, and I hope to see you next time at the gaming table. Bye!